Before breaking this down, it is important to address the mild criticisms. Firstly, yeah, it's a television show on a budget. That doesn't mean that it can't be written well and, honestly, just not be written lazy. Even if you can't show what you're about to tell, you can do some things to work around it. If, for instance, you can't show the ship being attacked, you can always have the actors sway one way or the other. Trek does that all the time. Secondly, if you think that because it's a television show, it means that it doesn't matter, this is the wrong channel for you. So let's just get into it.
The Tetrion readings indicate it's a D7 class cruiser.
D7? They were retired decades ago.
In the Voyager episode Prophecy, the Intrepid-class ship is assailed by an old generational Klingon vessel. Now, I feel like Paris is wrong right here, but I couldn't find an exact example of how. You'd think the war would bring all of the ships out, even the old ones that were mothballed. However, I couldn't find any examples of them in the war. Even if I could, though, it would make sense that Paris wasn't aware or would slip up, because, well, they're in the Delta Quadrant, and not the Alpha and Beta Quadrants. Anyway, let's get to the battle itself. At first, I'll break down what happens, along with the questions and errors that I see and why this is a botched attempt on both sides, and then we'll go back and rewrite all of it. So without going completely in depth to the plot, the basics of what you need to know here is that the Klingons, and these Klingons are from the 23rd century, are going to attempt to commandeer Voyager. In order to do that, they intend to knock out a landing party that thinks they're all going down there as friends, use the transporters after learning about them from Harry, and transport all of the Voyager crew down to the planet. A completely idiotic idea that, if you think about it, should have several safeguards to prevent them from doing any of it, but they are from the era of TOS where safeguards meant you were weak and so no one had them. Let's see how it goes for them.
Harry?
Believe it or not, the initial assault, both the way it's written and the way it occurs in universe, is done pretty well. The landing team is caught off guard, and we even have security there that should have been able to stop them, but again, we're surprised. While it's not choreographed well, I tend to assume that the weapon that is used by the Klingons to stop Harry is done so because it's his only option left. Even during the original series, any use of a phaser would alert the computer, so presumably the Klingon warriors didn't want to do that, but again, he had no option. This is the only part of this attack that makes sense for either side.
Phaser fire in Transporter Room 1.
Bridge to Chakotay.
Okay, with phaser fire being detected, Janeway dispatches her chief of security and 2 security officers who were on the bridge. I actually like that security officers are on the bridge, that makes sense, especially when they have aliens on board that initially attempted to attack them. This is the only real time that I remember this ever being done. And ultimately, they send the security officers off the bridge to take care of the issue in the transporter room, which is stupid. As you can see on this schematic, the main bridge module of an Intrepid is at the very top on Deck 1. Transporter rooms are located lower on Deck 4. While this isn't an insurmountable distance, one would assume that every deck should have security patrols. For this very reason, so that the chief of security and 2 orderlies don't have to basically do, I guess that's a brisk jog, to get to the location where the problem is. You could say that maybe on the way he called for them, but we never see him do that and we never see them. So now there will be a delay, seconds to minutes, that are vital in the taking over of the ship where the Klingons are unimpeded by security. It's just a great system.
They're on the surface.
Now lock onto the bridge officers.
They've activated a force field around Deck 1.
Transport the rest of their crew.
Now we're off to the races. They transport the landing party onto the planet, which they are near, and then attempt to do the same to the bridge crew. A force field is erected and they can't transport them out. Okay, well, that's great. That actually makes a lot of sense. I think a force field is probably too much since you would need people to get on and off the bridge. You probably want to use transporter scramblers, but honestly, I kind of see the argument for both. The order then is to transport everyone else off the ship, which they are successful in doing, and it also makes no sense. So you have enough intelligence to set up a force field for the bridge, but not, at a minimum, also have a force field for engineering? Arguably, more damage could be done in engineering than on the bridge. Now, maybe it's because of the warp core they can't do that, but no dialogue tells us that. But, okay, so we get everyone off the vessel, except for the bridge crew and the lightly jogging security. More on that in a little bit. Let's see what they're going to do at this point.
Some of our people are being beamed down to the surface.
Cut power to the transporters.
Can't.
Bridge to engineering. Bolano, respond.
There's no one in engineering.
Khan is giving information when that would be the purview of operations, who should be telling the captain what's going on. It's possible both Khan and operations have been rerouted to the same station due to manpower shortage on the bridge. We'll get into that in a moment, but still, it's annoying. Sure, whatever. Janeway has the forethought to cut power to the transporters. Now, this creates a dangerous situation if you ask me, since something is happening mid-transport, but we'll assume that there are safety systems to ensure that the transport completes or that it's reversed. Paris says that he can't cut power, and that's it. We have no idea why. It's never explained. What have the Klingons done to prevent the cutting of power to transporters? Did they mess with the systems? They weren't seen in engineering doing anything, it's just, I guess, really bad luck? Also, does the inability to cut off power prevent locking out the computer wholesale? Because I can't... What? As I stated, they transport everyone off except for the 3 security members coming at them. I guess there's something about a mild jog, with the officers having even a milder concern on their faces that prevent transportation.
The bridge officers? I still can't get a lock. Can you transport us there? I'll try.
Let me get this straight. A force field can prevent transporting anything out of it, but not prevent transporting anything into it. That's not very useful. Also, if they can transport something in, why not just transport 3 phasers set to explode to knock out the crew? Hell, why isn't the crew releasing anestazine on all of the decks and winning this battle easily? None of this makes any sense.
Computer, open the transporter room doors. Security.
Okay, so this is just awesome to me. The security rushes in and they all focus on the guy behind the control panel. I kind of get why you'd have that inclination, but my God. They walked into a door in the kill zone, as the military calls it, and completely focus on one guy versus the 4 that are to their left that all have phasers. This is just absolutely genius security training right here. Let's go ahead and analyze this. The Klingons transport in, but choose to transport all in the middle, between the Starfleet officers. Granted, they are catching the officers by surprise because, well, Starfleet is stupid, but Jesus Christ, they are now surrounded.
Set coordinates for main bridge. Port forward for me, aft for you.
You're on pad 2. I've set a 10-second delay.
We see, even in TNG, that they take this into account, and generally officers will transport on either side of a room, not all bunched up. Also, apparently the bridge is bristling with weapons under every nook and cranny, which I think actually makes sense for a practical military organization, but this is Starfleet, and we never see this tactic used again. Jesus Christ, aren't these things on stun? They are destroying equipment like it's a kill setting. TNG, that they take this into account, and generally officers will transport on either side of a room, not all bunched up. Also, apparently the bridge is bristling with weapons under every nook and cranny, which I think actually makes sense for a practical military organization, but this is Starfleet, and we never see this tactic used again. Jesus Christ, aren't these things on stun? They are destroying equipment like it's a kill setting. Nope. Tom should be dead or knocked out. This is Stormtrooper aim right here. I refuse to believe that Tom is not incapacitated right now.
Grant me a warrior's death. I beg of you.
And the Starfleet crew wins. Not because of policies in place to protect the bridge, not because of superior training or tech. They won because of luck. Dumb luck. You know what? No. I refuse to accept this.
All right, let's do this one last time.
Okay, so for this scenario, I'm going to assume that I'm required to keep everything that's been presented. 23rd century Klingons, 23rd century Klingon tech, versus a ship literally designed to fight the Borg and then the Dominion. And also a crew that should also be trained to fight the Borg and the Dominion. Fine. What I'm actually going to do is up the intelligence of the Klingons. Just because you're from the 23rd century doesn't mean you're stupid. I would have a meeting beforehand where the mutineers discuss how it's a shame that they're going to have to attack their allies, and then deciding how they're going to do this without hurting them. It's determined that the only way to take the ship is to knock out the subsystems. The crew, save for the Vulcans, are relatively weak compared to Klingons and should be able to be overpowered. Okay, groovy. Dad's your uncle, mom's your aunt. They figure out that if they detonate 2 magnetic pulse devices across the bow of Voyager, if it has its shields down, it should be able to mess with the subsystems, which then would prevent them from using the tech to stop them. And yeah, that's right, boys. We're doing a deep cut on Klingon technology for this one. We'll have the mutineers take control of the Klingon vessel's bridge and then pretend like there's an issue with the ship, and during that time, the magnetic pulse devices go off before the Intrepid could respond. At that point, the betrayal of the away team occurs. We have the firing of the phasers, which alerts the bridge crew that all might not be what it seems. The Klingons will attempt to beam off the bridge crew to find that there are actually redundancies that they were not aware of. Luckily, these redundancies either don't exist elsewhere on the ship or are knocked out during the first attack. The bridge crew at this time try to do everything they can think of to stop this. Anestazine, lockouts, power downs, everything is either tied to secondary subsystems, which I'd have dialogue about how that's going to be fixed, or that the Klingons have counteracted. Paris would state that the Klingons are making their way to engineering since they can't do anything about the bridge, and that's where I'd have the standoff. Ultimately, I'd have Janeway look pensive and then find a way to locally lock out the bridge so that no one can use it. A quick cutscene to the Klingons entering engineering, and they find that the computer is locked out there as well. They are then caught off guard by Janeway, Tuvok, Tom Paris, and everyone else. There's only one Klingon that is left standing, or perhaps half stunned, and he would ask how they were able to stop them. Janeway would respond in her rather annoyed, stern face, "You forgot that our shuttles come with transporters as well." And boom. For me, this fixes a lot of it. It makes more sense, it's logical, and it allows both sides to act with some intelligence. I'm sure there are a few holes that we'd have to plug, but I think that it works. These are just my thoughts, though. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, subscribe. I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.